My own brother forged Mom's signature, put the house in his name, and kicked me out like I was nothing. He said, "It's not your house anymore, Emily. You were just the extra kid Dad never wanted." He laughed. Right there on the porch Mom died on. I said nothing, just signed the papers he gave me. What he didn't know. The secondary title was still in my name, and I was about to take everything back. I was the daughter they never planned for. That was the silent truth that hung in our house like a fog no one wanted to acknowledge. My name is Emily Carter. I was born in Spokane, Washington, 10 years after my brother Nathan. And if you ask anyone in our neighborhood growing up, they'd tell you he was the golden boy. Football star, top of his class, Mom's pride, Dad's shadow. And then there was me, the quiet one, the afterthought, the mistake Mom didn't see coming. They never said it outright, but it was in the way they paused when people asked about their kids. In the way Dad always introduced us, "This is my son, Nathan, and his little sister." Never our daughter, just his little sister. Still, Mom tried. She wasn't perfect, but she had a softness when it was just the two of us. She'd bake pie with me while Nathan was out, brush my hair before school, and hum old Motown songs. She'd whisper, "You're stronger than you know. One day, that strength will matter." I didn't understand what she meant back then, but now, I know she was preparing me for everything Nathan would try to take. It started when Dad died. Nathan changed slowly at first, then all at once. He moved back home to help Mom manage the estate. But what he really did was start digging his roots into every corner of her life. He took over her appointments, her mail, her bills. He even got her to switch lawyers away from Deborah Klein, the family attorney she'd trusted for years. I watched it happen from New York, where I was trying to build my own life. I'd call, but Nathan always answered first. "She's tired. She's resting. She's not up for a call right now." It went on like that for months, until one day she called me herself, whispering, terrified. She said, "Emily, if anything ever happens to me, don't trust the deed, trust the title." I had no idea what she meant. She hung up before I could ask. I tried to fly back the next week, but Nathan blocked me. "Mom's not feeling well. She doesn't need stress right now." He always made me feel like I was the problem, like I was the reason Mom was frail. But when she passed, I booked the next flight anyway. I landed at Spokane International, rented a car, drove straight to the house, and what I saw made my stomach drop. The locks had been changed. Nathan stood on the porch like he owned the place, smiling. "Didn't expect you to show up so soon, sis," he said. "Things are already taken care of. Mom signed everything over to me before she went." He pulled out a paper, something that looked like a property deed. Her signature was shaky, too shaky. It looked wrong. I asked to see the will. He said it was private, said I should be grateful she left me anything at all. I remember feeling like I was drowning in silence, like I couldn't breathe. But instead of fighting, I said okay. I nodded, took my suitcase, drove to a motel, and that night, I called Deborah Klein, the lawyer Mom had trusted before Nathan made her switch. She picked up on the first ring. "I've been waiting for your call, Emily," she said. "Your mother left behind more than you know." And that's when I realized this wasn't over. It was just the beginning. The day Mom died, the locks changed. Not a week later, not after the funeral, the very same day. I remember pulling into the driveway and staring up at the porch, still half expecting to see her there wrapped in her favorite blue cardigan, coffee cup in hand, waiting for me like nothing had changed. But it wasn't her silhouette I saw. It was Nathan. He stood tall, smirking, arms folded across his chest like he'd just won something. He didn't say "I'm sorry," didn't offer a hug, didn't even say her name. Instead, he held out a manila envelope like it was some kind of gift. "Here," he said. "This should explain everything." Inside was a property deed, dated 3 weeks before Mom passed, signed supposedly by her. It gave him full ownership of the house. She wanted me to have it, he added. You've got your life in New York. She knew you didn't want to be tied down. Tied down, that house was the last place I ever felt safe. It was Sunday breakfasts, garden soil, her voice singing Motown in the hallway. And now he was telling me I didn't belong. I looked down at the signature again. It was weak, uneven, like someone tried to copy it with a shaking hand. But he had it notarized, stamped, sealed, legal-looking enough to scare me. I wanted to scream, to rip it in half, but Mom's voice echoed in my mind, "Don't trust the deed, trust the title." So I played dumb. I let him think I believed him. I said, "Okay, if that's what she wanted." He looked confused for a moment, like he expected a fight, but when none came, he smiled wider. "Good. Then we won't have any trouble." I picked up my bag and left without another word. I stayed in a cheap motel outside Spokane that night. Everything smelled like mildew and disappointment, but I didn't care, because I had work to do. The next morning, I met with Deborah Klein at a quiet cafe on the edge of town. She looked older than I remembered, but her eyes, those sharp, no-nonsense eyes, were still the same. "I was afraid it might come to this," she said. I handed her a copy of the deed Nathan gave me. She scanned it quickly, lips pressed into a tight line. "Forgery," she muttered. "You're sure I've seen her real signature hundreds of times? That's not it?" I let out a shaky breath. Relief, rage, something in between. "And there's more," she added. She reached into her bag and pulled out a folder. Inside was a copy of a secondary title registration filed 2 years ago, signed by Mom and Deborah, certified by the county clerk. It listed me, Emily Carter, as a co-title holder, not of the deed, of the title. The hidden layer of ownership most people don't think to check. Nathan never asked. He never knew. "As long as your name remains on that title," Deborah said, "he can't legally sell or transfer anything without your signature." I stared at the paper. It felt like holding a sword after being told I was defenseless, like Mom had reached out from the grave and handed me armor. And I knew what I had to do. I moved into action quietly. I hired a title expert to review the full property history. I requested video footage from the notary office Nathan used, and what I found made my blood run cold. The signature faked, the notary paid under the table. The witness listed a college friend of Nathan's who lived 2 states away at the time. It was a house of cards, and all I had to do was pull the bottom. But I didn't confront him. Not yet. Instead, I let him flaunt his win. He threw parties in the house, posted pictures online, captioned them. Finally, a real homeowner. I saved every post, every invoice, every conversation, and because I wasn't just going to take the house back, I was going to make sure he never saw it coming. 6 weeks later, I filed a petition in county court. Quiet, legal, powerful. I claimed my rightful co-ownership, challenged the validity of the forged deed, and invoked the secondary title. The court date was set. Nathan was served. And for the first time in his life, he looked rattled. He tried to call me, left voicemails filled with fake concern. "We're family. We don't have to fight." It was just paperwork. I didn't answer, because this time, I had something stronger than emotion. I had evidence. I had Mom's legacy, and I had the law. He thought he buried me, but he didn't know I was the one holding the shovel. I started building a timeline, every call, every document, every strange conversation Nathan had with Mom in her last months. Deborah and I combed through Mom's bank records and found withdrawals that didn't make sense, large amounts labeled as consulting or estate fees, money Nathan had no business touching. We subpoenaed the bank, confirmed his fingerprints were all over it. He'd been draining Mom's account behind her back, even bought himself a new truck 2 months before she died, and had the audacity to post about it online, captioning the photo, "Hard work pays off." Hard work more like quiet theft. Deborah smiled when she saw the evidence. "We have enough to burn the whole deed down," she said. But I wasn't done. I hired a private investigator not for Nathan, for the notary. Turns out, the guy had a record, had been caught rubber stamping documents before, for cash under the table. He admitted on tape that he never saw my mother sign anything, said Nathan looked trustworthy. We added that confession to our case file. By now, it was thick enough to break a desk drawer. Still, I didn't let myself celebrate. Not yet. Because court isn't about truth. It's about proof. And I wanted our case airtight. So I went further. Back to the county registry office. Requested every version of the title ever filed on the house. Made copies. Highlighted every date, every signature, every document that bore my name. And when the court day finally came, I wore Mom's bracelet, the one she used to wear when she baked. And I walked into that courtroom like it was mine, because it was, just like that house had always been. He had the deed, but I had the title. And in Spokane County, title trumps everything. It wasn't just a backup. It was the legal anchor that gave me rights Nathan couldn't erase. He tried, of course, filed a motion to strike my name from the record, told the court that Mom was confused when she signed it, said I manipulated her, said I pressured her. But I had more than a signature. I had a paper trail, emails, voicemails, witness statements, even a time-stamped photo of Mom at the county office the day she filed the title with Deborah. Her smile in that photo, clear, proud, undeniably sane. The judge reviewed everything, twice. Nathan brought in a lawyer from Seattle. Slick hair, expensive suit. He tried to talk circles around the facts, tried to paint me as the estranged daughter, the bitter sister, the one who swooped in to steal what wasn't hers. I didn't interrupt, didn't flinch, because I knew something they didn't. Truth doesn't scream, it just waits for silence. And when it was my turn, I didn't come in with drama. I came in with records, receipts, the kind of evidence even a $1 million lawyer can't argue with. I showed the judge the notarized title transfer signed by Mom in clear handwriting, the forged deed with the notary's later confession, Nathan's public social media posts flaunting ownership before the deed was finalized, financial withdrawals linked to consulting fees from Mom's account before her death. And I ended with one thing: a letter, written by Mom, notarized a year before she passed, addressed to me. She wrote, "Emily, if anything ever happens and this house becomes a war zone, know this. You are not an afterthought. You are not forgotten. You are my daughter. This house is as much yours as my name is mine." I finished reading it aloud. The courtroom was still. Even Nathan's lawyer looked down. The judge leaned back, removed his glasses, and said, "Miss Carter, the court recognizes your legal claim. The secondary title stands. Mr. Nathan Carter's deed is hereby void due to fraud." It took everything in me not to cry. Not from sadness, but from the rush of justice finally catching up. Nathan didn't take it well. He stormed out, muttering about appeals and family betrayal. But I didn't follow, because I wasn't chasing closure. I was reclaiming what was mine. In the weeks after, I returned to the house, alone. The air smelled like old wood and lost time. I ran my fingers along the doorframe, where Mom used to mark our heights with a Sharpie. There it was. Nathan, age 12, Emily, age 6, Mom's careful handwriting. I stood there longer than I should have, letting the silence wrap around me. It didn't hurt anymore. It felt like peace. But I didn't keep the house. Not because I didn't love it, but because it wasn't mine to hold forever. It was a battleground turned memory, and I was ready to move forward. I listed it, did a few repairs, painted the porch, replanted Mom's rose bushes, and sold it for $120,000 over market value. A bidding war broke out the first weekend. The buyer, a young family with 2 daughters, I smiled when they said they could see generations growing here. I left a note in the kitchen drawer. This home was built by love, lost to greed, and won back with truth. Treat it well. With the money from the sale, I bought a house of my own. Still in Spokane, smaller, quieter, but mine. Fully. Nathan never spoke to me again. He moved to Oregon, tried to start over. I heard he filed for bankruptcy a year later. The parties, the new truck, the flashy lifestyle, it all crumbled without stolen money to support it. Some nights I wonder if he ever thinks about what he did, if he ever looks at a house and remembers what he tried to take, but that's not my burden anymore. I don't carry his shame. I carry my name, my mother's love, and the title she gave me not just to a house, but to my own worth. Because in the end, he forged a signature, but I held the truth. And truth always leaves a deeper mark. In the days that followed the verdict, people started reaching out. Old neighbors, friends of Mom, even distant cousins I hadn't spoken to in years. They said things like, "We always wondered why she looked so tired those last few months." Or, "I wish we had spoken up sooner." I didn't blame them. Silence is easier than confrontation. But I learned sometimes. Silence becomes betrayal by default. And I'd been silent long enough. I joined a local housing rights group, spoke at 2 community forums, shared my story carefully, without names, just the facts, the lessons, the consequences of letting greed run unchecked within families. People came up to me afterward with tears in their eyes. One woman said her brother was doing the same thing to her right now. Another said he never thought to check title records when his father passed. I started realizing my story wasn't rare. It was just one of many. A pattern hidden beneath grief and tradition. Because no one wants to admit their sibling could be a thief. No one wants to believe that blood can betray. But it can't, and it does. One night, I sat down with a pen and a fresh notebook. I started writing out everything Mom had taught me, not just about property law, but about life. Things like don't confuse being quiet with being weak. You don't owe anyone your silence just to keep the peace. Forgiveness is earned, not owed. And perhaps most importantly, know what's in your name. Protect it like it's your spine. That last one stayed with me, because it wasn't just about a house. It was about identity, ownership, legacy. I kept the original title document in a safe now. Not because I needed it, but because it reminded me of the war I won without shouting. A war fought with paper, patience, and truth. Some battles aren't loud. They don't end with applause. They end with dignity restored, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing justice didn't need to knock twice. The court didn't even need a trial. The evidence was too clear, too precise, and too damning. Fraud leaves fingerprints, and Nathan left them everywhere. The forged deed, the ghost notary, the empty bank statements drained in Mom's final months. It was all there, lined up like dominoes, and one by one, they fell. But justice doesn't always feel like victory, not right away, because even as I walked out of that courtroom with the ruling in my hand, I still felt the weight of betrayal on my shoulders. This wasn't just about a house. It was about how far someone you love will go to erase you. Nathan had always been 2 people, the charming, generous brother in public, and the manipulative opportunist in private. He was the kind of man who made you feel crazy for asking questions, who turned guilt into currency, who weaponized family loyalty against you. I remembered when we were kids. He used to hide my report cards from Mom so she wouldn't know I was doing well. He said it was for my own good, that she'd expect too much from me if she saw the grades. Even back then, he needed to control the narrative, needed to be the golden one, and now he tried to rewrite our family's final chapter, tried to make himself the sole heir to a legacy built on love, grief, and sacrifice. But the truth is louder than any lie if you give it a voice. After the verdict, I sat down with Deborah Klein again. We went over what came next. She walked me through the paperwork, the title reactivation, the official transfer notices. "This isn't just a win, Emily," she said. "It's precedent. You'd be surprised how many cases like this never make it to court." I nodded, but my mind was somewhere else, stuck on a memory. Mom in the garden, pruning her roses, the way she used to say, "A rose bush blooms brighter after a clean cut." It stuck with me, because that's what this was. A painful pruning, a necessary cut. The house was legally mine now, but emotionally, it was still full of ghosts. Not just Mom's memory, but the echo of every slammed door, every bitter word, Every moment I was made to feel like I didn't belong. I spent a week inside it, cleaning. I boxed up what Nathan had left behind: leather jackets, broken furniture, a trophy he once won for most promising senior. I didn't keep any of it. I donated what I could, burned the rest. Some nights I'd sit on the porch and watch the streetlights flicker. Neighbors would pass by, sometimes nodding politely, sometimes avoiding eye contact altogether. They'd heard about the case. Some of them testified. Some of them stayed silent. But silence is its own answer. On the last night before I listed the house, I went up to the attic. Mom used to store everything up there: old photo albums, boxes of letters, Christmas lights from the 90s. I found a trunk. Inside was a stack of notebooks, all in her handwriting: recipes, journal entries, lists of things she wanted to do next spring. One page stopped me cold. It read, "If I die before I can make things right, I pray Emily finds the strength to fight. She deserves more than I could ever give her." I closed the notebook and cried for the first time in months, not from pain, but from release. She saw me, even when no one else did. The listing went live 3 days later. Offers flooded in. People loved the bones of the house, loved the porch, the fireplace, the garden I'd restored. It sold above asking in less than a week. The final buyer, a woman named Teresa, with twin daughters who reminded me of myself. She walked through the hallway and whispered, "It feels like love still lives here." I gave her the keys and left without looking back. With the money, I didn't splurge, didn't buy a fancy car or fly to Europe. I invested, started a fund in Mom's name, one that helps women fight legal housing battles when they're pushed out of what's rightfully theirs. It's small now, but it's growing. And every time someone wins their own war, I feel a piece of mine heal. As for Nathan, he moved states, tried to sue again, lost, got caught up in debt. Last I heard, he was living out of a trailer, blaming the world for everything he lost. But he didn't lose because of me. He lost because he gambled with the truth. And the truth doesn't play fair. It plays final. One afternoon, a reporter from the local news station called me. She said she'd been following the case, said people needed to hear the story. At first, I hesitated. I wasn't interested in attention. I didn't want a spotlight. I'd spent too long hiding in Nathan's shadow to crave that now. But then I thought about all the women who wouldn't know what a title meant, who might give up their homes because someone in their own family made them feel powerless. And I realized maybe my voice could protect someone else. So I said yes. We met at the courthouse steps. I told her everything from the forged deed to the final ruling. She asked me what I learned. I told her that silence isn't noble, and paperwork can be a weapon if you know how to use it. The segment aired a week later, and to my surprise, it went viral. Emails started flooding in, from California, from Texas, from Maine, women and men who had their homes stolen, their names erased, their inheritance manipulated. Some asked me for help, some just wanted to say thank you. And that's when I knew Mom didn't just leave me a house. She left me a mission. I began hosting workshops, small ones, free ones, libraries, churches, community centers. I taught people how to read deeds and titles, how to challenge probate fraud, how to recognize manipulation hiding behind legal terms. One woman, Maria, cried after a session. Her brother had taken their ranch after their father passed, but she found out her name was still on the mineral rights title. We worked together, and 3 months later, she won it back. She sent me a photo of the land with a caption that said, "You gave me more than advice. You gave me back my family's story." That one message made everything worth it. Because for the first time, I realized my pain had been repurposed. My grief was now someone else's roadmap. I still think about Nathan, but not with hatred, with clarity. He thought love was something you proved by conquering. I've learned real love doesn't need conquest. It needs courage. And sometimes it needs a courtroom. When I walk into my own house now, it's quiet, but not empty. There's warmth in the walls, truth in the floors, and pride in every document with my name on it. Because I didn't just win a house. I claimed my voice, and I'll never give it up again. The house was gone. The war was over. But what came next was mine to write. After everything, after the forged deed, the court battles, the betrayal, I stood in front of my new home, keys in hand, name on the deed, clean title. No shadows in the corners, no ghosts lingering in the walls. Just possibility. It was a modest house, one story, white siding, a little porch with chipped paint, but it was mine, fully, freely, and most importantly, honestly. The first thing I did was plant a rose bush in the yard, one just like Mom's. I dug into the soil with bare hands, felt the weight of memory in every handful of earth. And for the first time in what felt like years, I didn't feel like I had to fight anymore. I could just grow. I started waking up without dread, made coffee slowly, let sunlight spill across the kitchen tiles like a blessing. There were no slammed doors, no legal documents waiting on the table, only silence and the kind that felt like peace, not punishment. I hung photos of Mom in the hallway, one of her and me on the back porch, another of her laughing with flour on her nose. She looked alive in those pictures, like nothing could steal her light. And maybe, in some way, nothing ever had. Because her light lived on in me, in every decision I made with intention, in every contract I read twice, in every woman I taught to stand her ground. A few months later, I launched something new, the Carter Foundation for Property Justice. It started with just me and a website, but by the end of the year, we'd helped 20 women reclaim stolen homes. Some were small-town cases, some were urban nightmares, but all of them shared the same thread: someone underestimated them, and they came back with truth and paperwork. The most powerful kind of revenge ownership, not just of property, but of your own damn story. I kept getting letters from daughters, sisters, mothers, people who had been told they were too late, or not strong enough, or not legally relevant. I answered everyone, sometimes with resources, sometimes with my own number, sometimes with just this: you are not invisible. Let them try to forget your name. You write it in ink. It became a mantra in our office. We printed it on mugs, painted it on the wall above the front desk. Every woman who walked in saw it before she sat down. And I'll never forget the day someone walked in with my story printed out, the article, the court case, the photo of me in front of the courthouse. She said, "You're her." And I said, "No, I'm just someone who didn't stay quiet." She started crying. So did I. That moment felt bigger than any verdict, bigger than any courtroom, because it meant what I went through wasn't wasted. It was recycled into something that mattered. Nathan never called again. Not after the second lawsuit failed. Not after the foundation's story made it to regional TV. I think he finally realized there was no winning against someone who had nothing to hide. The last I heard, he was working in a shipping yard in Oregon, still bitter, still blaming, still convinced that life owed him more than he earned. But I don't think about him much anymore. He took enough of my past. He doesn't get my future. Sometimes I drive past our old neighborhood. I see the house where everything unraveled. It's different now, painted yellow, a tricycle on the lawn, someone else's laughter echoing through the trees. And I smile, because that house isn't mine anymore. And that's the victory. The real revenge is freedom. Freedom from lies, from silence, from the weight of what others tried to bury you under. I live lightly now, with open windows, with contracts in my name, with no secrets in my walls. And every time I walk into my home, I touch the door frame, just like Mom used to do. I whisper, "This is mine." And I mean it. A year passed, then two, and I started getting invitations to speak not just locally, but nationally, law schools, women's summits, real estate panels. At first, I said no. Public speaking had never been my dream. But someone reminded me, your voice didn't just save a house, it's saving lives. So I said yes. The first time I stood on a stage, my hands trembled. But I looked out into that crowd and saw women just like me. Quiet warriors, legal underdogs, survivors of manipulation masked as family. And I told them what no one told me. You are not a visitor in your own story. You are the author. I spoke about title law, yes, but I also spoke about shame, about how betrayal by blood can feel like it splits your bones, and how reclaiming what's yours doesn't make you cruel, it makes you conscious. Afterward, a young woman came up to me. She said her stepfather forged papers to take her mom's farm, said the family told her not to fight. She looked me in the eye and said, "But I will now." And in that moment, I felt it, the ripple effect of one woman telling the truth out loud. My foundation expanded. We built a hotline, hired 2 paralegals, started a scholarship fund for daughters disinherited through forged wills. Every time I signed a check or wrote a grant approval, I remembered the first time I saw my name erased from a deed, and how sweet it felt to carve it back in legally, fiercely, and permanently. Now, when I walk through my home, I see more than furniture. I see documents framed like art, the court ruling, mom's letter, the original co-title registration. These are my heirlooms, not jewelry, not antiques, but proof that I mattered, that I stood up, that I won. And if I ever have a daughter, I'll teach her what my mother taught me, that love doesn't hide things, that fairness has nothing to do with age or gender or birth order, and that no one has the right to steal her place. Not even family,